Famously known as the Notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg has earned her crown. Ruth Bader Ginsburg played an immense role in the women's rights movement of the 1960s. She fought against gender discrimination by using the law to prove that discrimination on the basis of sex was unconstitutional. Ginsburg's work provided more equality for future generations of men and women. Growing up in the 40s, Ginsburg found that the women's rights movement had just begun. Its progression had earned women the same minimum wage as men, and they were finally allowed to serve jury duty, which wasn't that exciting, but it was one step closer to being treated equally. However, not everyone was excited about this change. Not only men, but women who feared that they would lose protection from this movement resisted the Equal Rights Amendment. They were stuck in the past, bound by a stereotype that had been a big part of their lives. The law, too, created a barrier. At the time, the U.S. Supreme Court saw women as the center of home and family and took that into many of the rulings, like Hoyt v. Florida. It took until 1971, in a case that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was involved in, for women to be declared as persons in American law. Women were not allowed to be firefighters, police, miners, or pilots, and there was a stereotypical view that divided home and child-caring women and men as breadwinners. Many women, despite the Equal Pay Act in 1963, had trouble finding jobs, and the ones they found gave them lower pay than their male co-workers. However, men faced adversity when they fell into roles normally occupied by women because the law was tailored to incorporate gender roles. Both sexes found it difficult to fit into a rapidly changing society because of false stereotypes and biased laws. RBG fought gender discrimination by taking action and never giving up. She was one of the 9 women in a 500-student class at Harvard and graduated top of her class at Columbia Law School. In 1970, 11 years after graduating, Ginsburg co-founded the first law journal dedicated to gender discrimination. 2 years later, she became the first woman to receive tenure at Columbia Law School. In 1973, she argued her first case where a man was denied a tax deduction while acting as a caretaker for his mother. She also wrote the first textbook on sex discrimination called Text, Cases, and Materials on Sex-Based Discrimination, which was published in 1974. A few years later, she founded the American Civil Liberties Union Women's Rights Project after the ACLU introduced a number of gender discrimination complaints to her. This project continues to empower women of color, immigrant women, and poor women today. Ginsburg then went on to become the second woman on the Supreme Court in 1993 after Sandra Day O'Connor. In a 2013 interview, she was asked how looking at the changes around us can actually help to changing the Constitution. She responded by saying,
I didn't change the Constitution. The equality principle was there from the start. I just was an advocate for seeing its full realization.
Ginsburg's work continues to have an impact on us today. She not only fought to declare women as persons in law, but by proving that it was unconstitutional for the law to differentiate on the basis of sex, she granted equality to men and women by winning many discriminatory cases. She is still featured in many TV shows like SNL, The Late Show, and has had a documentary as well as a movie made about her. Thanks to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and those like her, men and women are as equal as we have ever been, but we have so much work left for us.